on TV that the use of mercenaries, to crack down on the people. So we should expect tomorrow and in the coming few days to see more escalation in the confrontation between al-Qaddafi and the people in Libya, because now the people are actually inspired by their own successes, because in the beginning we were talking about inspiration of the success of others, but we have seen now that the eastern part of Libya has almost been liberated completely, and that doesn't have an impact. So the people are seeing, inspired by the success of their own, is expected to continue the fight in Tripoli. And in particular, we have seen that tribal leaders are joining the confrontation, and tribal leaders who will make the difference. And the Gaddafi remains defiant, and we should expect to see some escalation.
It's not necessarily the case that all countries are going to follow the Tunisia and Egypt model, is it? I mean, we saw in Iran, after the presidential election, protests went on for 8 months. And came to nothing in the end.
Yeah. No, not necessarily. And Libya has some differences, although it has at the same time some similarities with Libya, with Tunisia and Egypt. So here we see in Libya something different. That's the rule of the tribal leaders and their impact on the Gaddafi. Because another thing is that we have seen in Tunisia and Egypt, the army is making the difference, but we don't see that in Libya. This is going to be the determining factor. Really, is the structure of the army in Libya is different. So if we're holding our breaths for the army in Libya to make a difference, that's not really the expectations, because we have seen actually the army is being split. So we should count on the tribes, because the tribes also, they have a huge impact. The way the Libyan army is set, is structured, is in relation with the tribes also.
I mean, tell us a little bit more about that, because a lot of people are saying that the army in itself is not necessarily a particularly powerful unit. Gaddafi has been very wary of a powerful military leader coming up, one that might possibly usurp his position. And there are any number, it would seem, of smaller military units gathered around the Sun's influential people that could be influential in this whole makeup. How is this going to play out?
The army, there are many players in the army's final decision on which way to go. In Libya, the structure again it's with the revolutionary committees and the way they interact with the army. It's a large part of the army comes from the revolutionary committees, and the tribes themselves, they have an impact on the army as well. So the army has been marginalized the way in the traditional sense that we know about Tunisia and about Egypt. So they will, the way we're expecting this to go is that they will follow individual units. We might see that the army is collapsing in Libya in the coming days.
Just one final question. I mean, we heard Oliver Miles, the former UK ambassador to Libya, saying that he actually was fairly cautious about saying what he knew what was going on in the country. He said, I can't confirm that he's been attacking his own people, as the news has been reporting. There is a very, very tight restriction on reporting out of the country, and Gaddafi himself is very confident that it's only a small minority, and the pictures he's been showing on state television are of supporters. So my question to you is, how confident are you that what's happening in Libya has the same kind of momentum and backing that we saw in Egypt?
First of all, I have to agree with the British ambassador that we don't know much about what's going on in Libya, and there is a very strict control of the media and on the information that is coming out of Libya. However, there are some indicators that we have seen in the past couple of days that tell us very obviously about what the situation is going on. Like what the British ambassador said, that he has not seen military jets that they're attacking people. It is true, we haven't seen that. But however, we have seen that two pilots defecting to Malta, and they confirmed to us, to the whole world, that they were ordered to bomb the people. So it is really, although yes, I agree with the British ambassador that we don't know much, but we have enough information also, whether it's from defecting or from the diaspora, that could give us a clear indication about what's going on the ground.
Once again, Ibrahim Shah, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, Egypt's military government has said that it has reinforced its border with Libya. It also says it will open a crossing on the coastal border to enable the sick and injured to leave Libya. Jamal AlJazeera is in Saloum, that's in Egypt, near the crossing with Libya, and he joins us now live. Jamal, what's the situation where you are?
Well, Taimur, since the early hours of today, thousands of Egyptians have been flooding across the border from Libya into Egypt, returning back home with horrific tales of mercenaries killing people, going into their homes, with horrific tales of helicopter gunships shooting indiscriminately at people. And that's something that obviously we are unable to verify because of the restrictions of us entering into Libya and seeing firsthand. However, many people have shown me videos on their mobile phones, have shown me images they've taken on their own cameras, which really do show the graphic nature of what has been going on in the past 48 or 72 hours. Also, there has been some reaction from some of the Libyans who have also fled into the country here when they heard Gaddafi's marathon speech, as you put it earlier. The reaction has been that of fury, that of disgust to a lot of extent to what has been said by Gaddafi. Many see it as not a veiled threat, but in fact a very obvious threat to actually use lethal force against the people who are opposing him.
I mean, where you are, obviously you're seeing the people who didn't want to stay and fight for one reason or another. Do they think there is enough momentum? There are enough people left behind who will carry on the battle?
Yes, definitely. The people who obviously who are leaving, they are mainly Egyptians, and a lot of them feel that they have been forced out, and that a lot of them feel that their livelihood essentially has been cut by what's going on. However, there is a lot of sympathy expressed by many of the people I've spoken to what has been going on. They tell me that the eastern part of the country has succeeded in overthrowing the regime or elements of the regime, eastern parts including Al-Bayda, including Benghazi and some of the surrounding areas. In terms of how that will be able to translate as the movement goes westwards and more importantly into Tripoli, obviously it's difficult to assess from the tales that we're hearing here, because a lot of those who are coming in have been streaming in from the eastern side of the country, Taimur.
Jamal AlJazeera on the border between Egypt and Libya. Thanks, Jamal. Now, calls for urgent international intervention have been increasing over the last 48 hours. The United Nations Security Council has been meeting behind closed doors. This after earlier the Secretary-General, Ban Ki-moon, made his feelings clear about the situation in Libya.
I have seen very disturbing and shocking scenes where Libyan authorities have been firing at demonstrators from the warplanes and helicopters. This is unacceptable. This must stop immediately. This is a serious violation of